welcome back to The Hidden Life of Trees, chapter 13. In the last chapter I was reading about how oak trees that can be so incredibly strong and have such immensely long lives can also be quite fragile. Reminded me of the strength and fragility of humans. I hope we're going through interesting times at the moment, and that's why I'm reading these stories, as a way of linking with people around the world. And I hope wherever you are, whatever's going on, you're doing okay and enjoying some of spring and nature, which is really blossoming at the moment. Okay, so chapter 13, specialists. Trees can grow in many extreme environments. Can? Indeed, they must. When a seed falls from a tree, its landing site can be changed only if the wind blows or an animal moves it. And once it has sprouted in the spring, the die is cast. From that point of view, the seedling is bound to this little piece of earth for the rest of its life, and must take whatever life hands out. And for most tree youngsters, life hands out a whole series of challenges. For the place where a seed happens to end up often turns out to be highly unsuitable. It's either too dark, as it is when a light-hungry bird cherry sprouts under large beeches, or it's too bright, which is the case for beech youngsters whose delicate foliage gets scorched in the blazing sun in clearings. Marshy forest floor rots the roots of most trees, whereas in dry, sandy soil they die of thirst. Places with no nourishing soil at all, rocks or branch forks in the big trees are particularly unfortunate landing sites. And sometimes luck doesn't last. Consider seeds that come to rest in the tall stumps left when trees snap. The settled seed grows into a little tree whose roots descend into the mouldering wood. But when the first unusually dry summer rolls around, causing the last of the moisture to evaporate, even from the decaying wood, the would-be winners wither and die. Many Central European tree species have similar ideas about the ideal place to live, because similar criteria for well-being holds true for most of them. They love nutrient-rich, loose, crumbly soil that is well aerated to a depth of many feet. The ground should be nice and moist, especially in summer, but it shouldn't be too hot, and in the winter it shouldn't freeze too much. Snowfall should be moderate, but sufficient that when the snow melts it gives the soil a good soaking. Fall storms should be moderated by sheltering hills or mountain ridges, and the forest shouldn't harbour too many fungi or insects that attack the bark or wood. If trees could dream an earthly paradise, this is what it would look like. But apart from a few small pockets, these ideal conditions are nowhere to be found. And that is a good thing for species diversity. In Central Europe, if Central Europe was such a paradise, the competition would be won almost exclusively by beeches. They know exactly how to exploit abundance, and they suppress competitors by growing up through the crowns of other trees and then covering the losers with their upper branches. If a tree is going to survive such powerful competition, it has to come up with an alternative strategy. Dun, dun, dun. But deviations from the arboreal idea of paradise make life difficult for trees, and any tree that wants to find an ecological niche next to a beech must be ready to practice self-denial in one area or another. But are we really talking about ecological niches? As almost no habitat on Earth offers ideal living conditions, it's actually got more to do with the trees adapting than the niche being ideal. There are any number of difficult sites, and a tree that can get along in such places can conquer an enormous geographic range. And it's basically what the spruce has done. Spruce can gain a foothold everywhere where summers are short and winters are bitterly cold. From the far north to mountain ranges in Central Europe near the tree line, because the growing season in Siberia, Canada, and Scandinavia is often only a few weeks long. A beech growing there wouldn't even have a chance to open up all its leaves before the end of the season, and the winter is so bitterly cold that the tree would have frostbite long before it was over. In such regions, it's the spruce that prevails. Spruces store essential oils in their needles and bark, which act like antifreeze. Interesting. And that's why they don't need to jettison their green finery, but keep it wrapped around their branches in the cold season. As soon as the weather warms up in the spring, they can start photosynthesizing. Not a day is lost, and even if there are only a few weeks in which sugar and wood can be produced, the tree can still grow an inch or two every year. An inch or two. However, holding on to needles is also extremely risky. Snow lands on the branches and accumulates until the load is so heavy it can break the tree. The spruce employs two defense mechanisms to avoid this. Firstly, a spruce usually grows an absolutely straight trunk. When a structure is nice and vertical, it is difficult to upset the equilibrium. Second, in summer, the branches stick out horizontally. As soon as the snow lands on them, they gradually angle down until they are layered one on top of the other, like tiles on a roof. Arranged like this, they mutually support each other, and the tree, when viewed from above, presents a much skinnier profile. This means that most of the snow falls around the tree and not on it. Spruce growing in snowy areas at high altitudes or in the far north also form very long, narrow crowns with short branches, and these slim the trees down even more. Holding on to needless needles flirts with yet another danger. Needles increase the surface area the tree presents to the wind, and therefore spruce are prone to toppling over in the winter storms. The only thing that protects them in these their extremely slow rate of growth. Trees hundreds of years old are often no taller than 30 feet. And statistically speaking, the danger of being blown over doesn't increase significantly until the trees are more than 80 feet tall. Natural forests in Central European latitudes is often overwhelmingly beech, and beech trees allow very little light to reach the ground. The yew, the epitome of frugality and patience, has decided to make the most of these conditions. Because it knows it can hold a candle to the beech in the growth department, it has decided to because it knows it can't hold a candle to the beech in the growth department, it has decided to specialise in the forest understory. And here, with the help of 3% of residual light the beeches are allowed to filter down through their leaves, it grows. Under these conditions, it can take a whole century before a yew reaches 20 or 30 feet and sexual maturity. and a lot can happen to it in this time. Herbivores can nibble it down and set it back for decades, or worse, a dying beech could knock it over completely. But this tough little tree has taken precautions. Right from the beginning, it puts considerably more energy into building up its root system than other species of tree. Here it stashes away nutrients, and if misfortune strikes above ground, it grows right back without missing a beat. This often leads to the formation of multiple trunks, which may merge when the tree reaches an advanced stage, giving the tree an untidy appearance. And boy, can these trees grow old. I love you, trees. Living to 1,000 years old or more, they easily outstrip the closest competition, and over the course of centuries they increasingly get to bask in the sun whenever an old tree growing above them breathes its last. Despite this, yews grow no more than 65 feet tall. They are fine with this, and they don't strive to reach greater heights. The hornbeam, which, though you wouldn't know it from its name, is related to the birch, tries to imitate the yew, but is not quite so frugal in its habits and needs a bit more light. But it does survive under the beeches, even though it doesn't grow into a large tree here. A hornbeam rarely grows taller than 65 feet anyway, and it reaches that height only when it grows under trees that allow light through, such as oak. Here the hornbeam is free to develop, and as it doesn't get in the way of larger oaks, at least there is plenty of room for both species. But often along comes a beech that pours rank on both of them and grows up and over the oak. The hornbeam can compete only when there is not only a great deal of shade, but also severe drought and heat. Here, beeches have to give up eventually, which means on dry south-facing slopes at least, the hornbeam stands a chance of emerging the winner. In swampy ground and standing oxygen-depleted water, the roots of most trees don't survive, and the trees die off. You find these conditions near springs or along the banks of streams, where the floodplains is regularly underwater. Say a beech nut finds its way there by mistake and sprouts. At first it might grow into an imposing tree, but sometime during the summer thunderstorms the tree will fall over when its rotten roots lose their footing. Spruce, pines, hornbeams and birch run into similar problems when their roots spend some or all of their time in stagnant water. It's completely the opposite for alders. Alders. At around 100 feet, it's true they don't grow as tall as their competitors, but they have no problem growing in unpopular swampy ground. Their secret is a system of air ducts inside their roots. These transport oxygen to the tiniest tips, a bit like divers who are connected to the surface via a breathing tube. In addition, wow, that's really interesting. In addition, the trees have cork cells in the lower part of their trunks, which allow air to enter. It is only when the water levels remain higher than these breathing holes for an extended period of time that the alders weaken sufficiently for their roots to fall victim to aggressive fungi. It is really amazing the way life adapts and is so ingenious. I'm constantly fascinated. And yeah, humans, we're part of nature, and the way that humans adapt, the way that you look around and see how it all works and adapts to the difficult conditions and the wonderful conditions, it's really fascinating. Hope you enjoyed Join me for the next chapter, Tree or Not to Tree.